Welcome to PEP Talks with Eric, where we shift gears from negative feedback loops and drive towards the life we truly want. I'm your host, Eric Ayers. I believe in the power of Ubuntu. I am because we are. Together, we'll explore how connections fuel our growth and create amazing experiences. In this podcast, we'll tune out the noise of the world and tune into what we really want and what really matters. All right, man. So much to unpack here. And what a beautiful place to get to say thank you, right? For the experiences that I needed to go through in order to get me to become the man that I am. That impacts other people's lives. That is huge. Back to Wayne Dyer. He was in foster from the age of like 2 or 3 to I think 9, maybe 11, something like that. And then dealt with abuse and like grew up hating his dad. And then when he finally realized, wait a minute, I'm on a journey, it was God that was like, you got to go find your dad. Well, his dad died 10 years before this. And he goes to the grave, to his words. He went to his grave to piss on his grave. That's what he said. Like, he was so mad. And he got there and he spent hours learning forgiveness and thanking his dad, because at that point he realized his dad was his greatest teacher, because what he signed up for, what his goal is, what he was going to do for the rest of his life is to teach people self-sufficiency. And in order to do that, he had to be put into situations to where he had to be self-sufficient. He had to practice this. And like, you can't be self-sufficient and have everything brought to you and have like everything great, right? So, man, first of all, thank you for sharing this story and for like showcasing the power of a lived experience, man. And yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, so now this explains a lot of how like that energy that I felt meeting you and carrying over into these kids who, coming from, you know, a coach perspective, in your shoes, walking into this, doing these clinics, being the coach, you have no idea the experiences that these kids have had up to this point. And so being the light for this kid on a weekend for 1 hour, for 2 hours, is profound. Like, freaking profound, because you're taking your lived journey and being like, all right, now I know this is my greatest teacher. I want to expose that to others. Right.
Yeah.
And taking it one step further, you're like, I'm not going to stop there. But like, I remember like you getting them, you're like, all right, close your eyes. And they were swimming to the wall and you were going over like how to eliminate fear.
Yeah.
Through quantum physics. Man, just talk to me a little bit about like where this even came up and how you utilize this. Just speak into the application of coaching in the avenue in which you coach.
Well, I think the best way to explain this is, you know, one of the things that I articulate to the kids, you know, before we get into the pool, is they don't know how smart they are. You know, they don't know the natural, raw brilliance and genius that they have in them. And, you know, I tell them a story about my nearly 2-year-old boy now, where when he was 14 months, he had like a skin condition, and you know, like we didn't want to, you know, get anything, you know, medical. We wanted to try and heal it in a natural sort of fashion. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I came up with this idea, not really my place to you know, think up of these sorts of things. But I said to my wife, I said, look, why don't we put some omega-3 because we've got these omega-3 capsules. Why don't we put some omega-3 on the area that's affected and see what happens? Anyway, it worked. And at the time, we were giving him and his sister, actually, Everly was now taking her omega-3 tablet orally. But for him, we didn't want him to choke on it, so we just put it in his smoothie bottle. Anyway, so maybe about a month later, I said to Tess one morning, I said, are we giving Rafe his omega-3 tablet orally now? And she said, yeah, right. So I hand him the tablet, and he doesn't put it in his mouth, right? He starts dabbing the area of his skin where and I just like, and I've got tons, and all parents have got stories that they remember from their kids where they did something that was beyond the expectation of their comprehension, right? And, so if you look at, as kids grow up, who are the influences, who are the authorities in their life? Well, it's parents, coaches, and teachers, all right? And I did it with my own boy, like I was surprised at his comprehension, and he can do things. We can tell him to do things and he will go and do them, but he can't speak them back. Yeah. So there's a gap there in the awareness of the comprehension. And we do it as parents, we do it as teachers, and we do it as coaches. And so I guess one of the reasons, because I never thought I'd be a coach. I remember the gentleman who actually got me into coaching. We were on the same two Olympics together, Brett Hawke, and we used to giggle that we would never be coaches. Nothing against coaches, but we'd done swimming for 20-something years. I don't really want to do it for another 20. And here I am on pool deck, like just loving the experience of pouring into these kids. And yes, I teach from a do this, don't do that. And that's my point, right? So parents are the life educators, and they do it primarily by saying, do this, don't do that. Teachers at school, do the math problem this way, don't do it this way. Coaches, swim this way, don't do it that way. But what that leads to is, and if you take my coach, Greg taught me how to swim backstroke. So Josh, do it this way, don't do it that way. It's a very small step for the underling, right? The person who is learning from that person, to put that person on a pedestal and treat them as a god of sorts, right? The god of life, if we're a child, the god of maths, if we're into maths, or the god of swimming, or whatever it is. And as soon as you make that assumption, you assume that you know nothing, right? So even at 7, did I know nothing about backstroke? Or at 10, do I know nothing about money? Or at 13, do I know nothing about maths or read? No, you know something, right? So that's what I play to. I play to, something. But if you're smarter than you think you are, more creative and more brilliant, then you know more than you think you know, right? So my job is to reveal that to them. And if I can do that in a clinic situation, and you said this, and I wrote it down in my phone notes, if I can take them one step with me, because that's the hardest step, right? Because if you're taught in everything that you do to don't do this and do that, all you end up doing is looking to that person for their next piece of instruction. And let me just quickly go to my notes, because I was listening to a podcast, and again, if there's a gift that I've been given, it's my ability to take information that on the surface appears unrelated to where I need to use it. And this is what you're talking, when you say quantum, if you had said to me 5 years ago, you're using quantum physics in the pool, I'd be saying, mate, I'm not that smart, right? But that's right. So I did a clinic and I hear things and I pick things up and I go, wow, I can use that. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I did a clinic with a fairly inexperienced coach, and he said, are you doing something or are you using something? Right. So someone who is doing something, they are doing this, not doing that. Someone who is using something, there's a greater level of awareness in the activity. So then I listened to this other podcast, which I'm not sure whether you know of, the Baymar podcast. Uh, it's an Eastern look, a Hebraic look at the Bible. Amazing. And in that podcast yesterday, and this is a really good example, they were talking about, are you being told or are you discovering?
Mm.
Right? You're being told or
Mhm.
discovering. So what did I do? I melded the two. I melded the doing as being told and the using as discovering. Right? So I'm in a clinic situation, every single lap, my job is to give kids information in a way that they may not, they don't have to understand it straight away, and it's probably more beneficial that they don't. I want
Yeah.
their thinking challenged, right? But if I can get them to apply that concept and take one step with me, they'll take an infinite number of steps without me. That's what you said. That's how you articulate, and I put it down as a note. And that's the sort of coach that I want to be, because I want kids empowered. I don't want their, their life experience, their athletic experience, their professional experience, their whatever, to be conceptualized as do this, don't do that. Because all they're going to do is look to someone for the next instruction. And in doing so, they just completely disregard their own genius and their own brilliance. So that's what I try and get out. And, like, it's interesting. I became a way better clinician on pool deck when I became a dad, no question. And it was very quickly.
Yeah.
And yes, because of the appreciation of a person that I'm now responsible for, that's not me. But the reason why I became such a good clinician, and this took me a little while to understand, but typically when I do a clinic, there is like 9 to 11-year-olds and then 12 plus, right? And they are vastly different, but
Yeah.
vastly different.
Right.
My clinics leveled up when I realized that the child that was damaged on pool deck is being repaired every single session that I spend with these kids, right? And that's why I connect with the younger kids more than the older kids, because that is the window of time that this abuse happened to me, right? That was just, again,
Dude.
that was probably the bridge from, God, how could you let this abuse happen to me,
Yeah.
to, mate, thank you. Thank you for bringing me full circle and allowing me to witness my own repair in real time through kids that are of the age
Yeah.
that I was when I suffered this abuse.
Dude, that brings in a real life example of hurt people, but healed people heal people, or
Yeah.
offer the environment for them to heal themselves. Like, beautifully put. And oh, the fact of you're looking at these kids as the genius that they are. The quote behind me, the Einstein says, everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its whole life thinking it's an idiot.
Mm.
Likewise, like, everyone has an attribute, a superpower, a genius within them that when ignited, dude, they become the best version of themselves that they possibly can be. And what I ultimately love that you describe so well is coaching. I mean, outside of sports coaching, but like coaching, transformational coaching, life coaching, um, it's about empowering. It's about setting an environment and empowering that individual to tap into the answers that they already know they have. They just need help finding it, because it's been hidden from them because they've been doing. They've been following yes, no, this way, that way, and they've lost track of their inner compass that they were born with. And so tapping back into that is so powerful, man. That's I love that. And I love the fact that you didn't know you were teaching quantum physics, but yet you were teaching quantum physics, and not only teaching quantum physics as this is quantum physics, but as a way of saying, I'm going to help you eliminate fear, or at least dance with fear and move with the fear and not let it be debilitating through giving you the experience of interacting with, we're going to take one of your senses away and you're going to feel how you're interacting with the energy around you, of the water, of the people. Like, I mean, that was one of the most brilliant and beautiful things that I've seen in sports. And I spent my entire childhood from like 5 to 18 in sports, and never had I had anyone give me the ability to say, this is how we interact with the world through being us. And this is how we learn through trusting self. And I'm like, what? I'm like, and then I'm looking at our our 15-year-old daughter, and I'm like, what a freaking powerful lesson to learn, not from mom and dad, right?
Mm.
From a loving human being that is here sharing their lived experience and helping kids heal while they have the ability, you know, to heal in a greater magnitude, right? So they can start their lives quicker. They can get to that aha moment quicker. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. Now the trajectory of the life is now like skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff, man. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, at the end of a clinic, I, I always put it out there. Hey, if you want a photograph, if you want something signed, come and, say hello, and, we can get that done. The best compliment, that I can get is when, like I remember the first time it happened, it's this 9-year-old girl. And I said, do you want something signed? Do you want a photograph? She goes, no, I just want a hug. Like, I was like, I teared up straight away. I was just like,
Oh,
in this world, I'm 48 in a few months. I'm a guy. Like that shows that the child in me has connected with the child in. That's the only way. There's not how else.
yes.
We're swimmers, but
Yep.
there's no other relatable piece other than the child in me has spoken to the child in her. And honestly, I mean, I've had people on pool deck. I'm so in tune to the spirit that when I'm in that teaching situation, that a parent will come up to me and I'll say, "Oh, I loved how you said this." That I went, "What? What did I say?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like I get into these flows where
Yeah.
I it's just the spirit, in me coming out my mouth. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you for what you do. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. It is well received. And from one man to another, like that safe masculinity, right,
Mhm.
is something that at least in this culture is not prevalent, right? And so bringing balance in that, simply in a 9-year-old asking you, yeah, I don't want your autograph, but I want a hug. Like, that's beautiful, because that is human connection, and that is us being able to align with our purpose that ultimately helps other human beings. And ultimately, I mean, that's what this podcast is about, is like identifying that we see someone in status or who has done great things, been to 2 Olympics, right? Medaled in Olympics. To me, looking on, that is huge. And then we have the ability to hear the story, and it's like the perception and the reception of the other, they're not always aligned, because we just see the outcomes, and you lived the process. We all have a process. And that's what I love about this, is like we all have permission to go through the process. And when it sucks, oh, we are being taught something so great about ourselves if we can just embrace that suck and then come out, right, tap into our spirituality, and come out better for it, learn from
Yeah.
it. And then when we do that, we get to help others.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
I
beauty
totally
of this
agree.
whole thing, man.
Yeah.
Oh, so, all right. What is something like one resource or maybe a couple of resources that you would say this actually changed everything about my life or it changed the way I see life that you would recommend to one of the listeners right now?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, look, as far as it's for me, my spiritual disciplines are really important.
Mhm.
And, like, yeah, okay. So I actually got baptized before I truthfully gave my heart to God. And before that, I was a sort of type A person, and I judged my value as what I got
Yeah.
out of the day, and so I think that, the first spiritual discipline that I had was going to church, um, and then I brought in a devotion again, inconsistent, but it's amazing how these spiritual disciplines start to be foundational, because when I was only doing my devotion 2 or 3 times a week, I wanted to do them every day, right? But my flesh just hadn't surrendered enough
Mhm.
to prioritize it. But I'd get frustrated. I'd be like, God damn it, I only did 3 this week, like, and you just get so annoyed at yourself. And then all of a sudden you do a week of 5 or 6 or a full week of 7 every single morning, and you're like, oh wow, right? But then but then I do my devotion, and it's almost like, I'll see you tonight, God, when I pray
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But then that's not what you want, because you want to carry him across the day, but just my activity and my desire to perform just elbowed him out. And then so you go through the same process, right? You become frustrated. And then, I added a spiritual discipline, which was worship music, right?
Mhm.
So, we have a little mobile speaker. It's playing as we're having breakfast, or I'm listening to it. Like if I go to the gym there on the way back, just in a generic sense, I can be doing some work with my headphones on, listening to
Mhm.
some instrumental worship music. And as a result of that, I'm now carrying God an hour or two deeper into my day. But
Yeah.
there's still separation there. And, like you have a phone call at 3:30 in the afternoon and it doesn't go so well. And you've yelled at your boss, or you've done something like, and you're just like, oh, again, you're not here, and it's my fault that you're not here. But then,
Yeah.
then again, you get a tipping point where, and the tipping point for me, I remember, doing this devotion, and the word that came to mind, because I'm like, I used to, I remember reading a book, and the guy said, and he was like a businessman, many businesses, very successful. And the first question was, who do you employ? How do you know how to employ someone? And his answer was, people who walk fast, because they get stuff done, right? And so, I mean, if I can get from A to B as quick as I can, great.
Right.
That's time
Yeah.
saved, because
Yeah.
I'm that sort of personality. Like, let's get it done quickly. Let's get it done. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And the word that came out of this devotion was dawdle. Like, so basically, I was I was losing God because I was going ahead of the pace that He
Mhm.
wanted from me for that day. So if I'd started, and I would literally walk around going left, right, left, right. I started to do nothing fast, right? So for me, it's walk slow, talk slow, think slow. They're like my mantras that have allowed me to stay with God across the day,
Yeah.
because I'm way more capable, than God allows me to be. But but in being more capable, all I'm doing is chasing the wind, right?
Right.
So for me, spiritual discipline. So
Mhm.
this is my spiritual day. Um, I as soon as the alarm goes off, I pray. Quick prayer for about 60 seconds. If I'm going to gym, I'm listening to worship music on the way there, on the way back. If I am not going to gym, I have worship music playing as early as I can in the day. And then once that, and I serve my family. I make their breakfast. I make my wife's coffee. I'm the, I'm either doing something to push myself physically,
Mhm.
or I'm at home putting myself second to my family. And again, that slows me down.
Mhm.
And we sit and we have a good conversation with my wife, and the kids are jumping all. It's just it's such an important part of the day
Yeah.
because of my interaction with my family, but also because it keeps me slow. And if I'm slow, God's with me. And so then when I start my day, that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be slow, think slow, talk slow, walk slow, and then so I do a devotion, and then at night, my wife and I, we read our devotion, we talk through it, we share a bit of stuff about it, and then we pray and go to sleep. And I can miss a devotion, or I can not play worship music, and God will still be there. But
Right.
if I'm above and beyond His output and His speed for my day, that's the key for me. If I and again, you're like, sometimes you're like, man, is this all you want me to do today? It's like I remember the number of times I would be on the golf course on a Thursday, and someone would ring, hey, such and such gave me a number. Can I place an order for boxing equipment? And I'm like, hang on a minute, like where'd this come from? Who are you
Yeah.
again? Like,
Yeah.
it's just instant blessing. And the God's like,
Yeah.
see, it's not
Yeah.
you. And even my one today was about provision.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
God is my provision. Nothing I can do can get more than what He's prepared to give me. Okay, sweet. So if that's the case, why don't I just stay at His pace, at peace, still, quiet, and listening to what He's got to say? Because what happens is,
Right.
if He wants me to go from A to B, and it's me driving, mate, I'll go 10 times
Mhm.
the distance that is necessary. He's like, mate, you got there. But if
Mhm.
you just had to listen to me, it would have been a whole lot more beautiful process, and you would have given me the glory for it, because there are things that I had in store for you that you just can't do. Okay. So spiritual disciplines are crucial. And look, that's the foundation of my
Yeah.
day and my performance. So
Well, that brings alignment, and when you're aligned to who Josh is,
yeah.
that's the essence of you, right? One last thing that I picked up as you were saying this, that is, God, it's amazing, man, is intentionality. First of all, right? Being very intentional. I love the morning routine. The making coffee for my wife is one of the highlights of my day. Right? It's that servant. It's like we work together in this. So if I can help you set your day up for success, let's do that. But the other thing so impactful is, as that 12, 13-year-old boy that was sobbing, and your coach ultimately told you patience.
Yeah.
And then now you're trying to speed up, and God is saying, patience, slow down, because like we're here, we'll get there,
Yeah.
but we're going to get there and you're still going to have your energy. You're still going to have your essence,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be so tired. Your family's still going to be there, and let's do this, and it's going to be in total alignment with the plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love
I
it,
mean,
man.
I remember I remember when I had so much going on in my head as far as like task type stuff.
Mhm.
My brain was leaking out my ears. Like it was like my engine. Sorry, so let's put it this way. My pride saw value in my engine operating at 110%, right?
Mhm.
And I remember when I made a conscious decision to walk slow, think slow, talk slow, walking around with a brain that's like 50% empty, 60% empty, like that was tough, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because I just felt, I'm like, man, there's so much more that I can do. But I mean, even like, um, let me just quickly, because there's something I remember. Do you mind if I read my devotion
Go
from
for
today?
it. Go
Right.
for it, man.
So in Weimar, this podcast, this was the quote, and there was evening and morning the next day, right? So what the Hebraic look at the Genesis story is, the day starts in the evening,
Mhm.
right? The day
Right.
starts with rest, okay,
Right.
as opposed to what we think, which is, well, sun's up, let's go and work, right?
Right.
Um, rest is an integral part of each day and week. God rested not because he was tired. He rested because his creation was good. The work was done. It was done well. So stop to rest. I don't use rest as you have meant it to be. If that's the case, then it's likely that I'm using more time than you wish for me to work. Now, this is the kicker. If I have enough, which I believe that I do, then I can only be doing the extra for me and or someone else. That would mean that the extra I do is seeking something extra. That also means that I'm not content. Right. So I don't physically want for stuff. Like, money's not a motivator. We've got a house, we've clothes, we've got good food, we've got all those sorts of things. But if I'm doing more than what God wants me, I'm saying that I'm not content in a different fashion. So then I truly am not content with what I have, and am subconsciously subverting your blessing. And I just said, there is more peace available to me through greater obedience than I realized. So I feel like I've got a good sense of peace, but there's even more peace, right, available to me if I just step out in faith at God's provision and what he wants me to do, because God's economy is not about performance. You are loved. Doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do to be more loved.
Yes.
There's nothing you can do to have more. Forget about it.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. So that takes a lot of pressure off my shoulders,
Yep. I am enough and I'm loved.
Yeah.
And those two probably are the biggest mantras that I've ever used is recognizing those two. Josh, man, this has been amazing. I appreciate the honesty, the vulnerability, and I appreciate what you do, man. So thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. And I mean, it's interesting because I wanted to mention this, more recently, more just before, when you were talking about masculinity and vulnerability, and like my covenant with God is with kids, but I just, and I'll say this sometimes to kids in a clinic, and this is a belief that I have: the strongest man is the man that can show his emotions freely in public, right? So society has tried to convince men that we're not as sensitive as women. Garbage. I cry more than my wife. Like, I'll look at her in the kitchen and I'll just tears. Rafe had a pretty rough sleep 2 nights ago, and he would get out of his bed, and I must have gone in to him half a dozen times, and I didn't know that Everly was awake because they sleep in the same room. And I was just about to close the door one of the times I went in to put him, and I just hear Everly's little beautiful soft voice, "Good night, Daddy." Gone. Just like walking out the door, tears running down. Like I more than anything, like, the world would be a better place if more men honored their emotions, showed their emotions, weren't afraid of people seeing them. Like, I mean, there was a moment earlier, to be honest, I'm pretty proud of myself. Some of the stuff I've shared today is more than enough for me to, lose it. And I've told stories, I've told that story about no one remembers Nate. And I've been, hang on, give me a second. Let me gather myself. I would love for men to honor their emotions and be vulnerable and be brave, and I'm convinced that wives would love it and kids would love it too.
Absolutely. Because it gives them permission to do the same. That's what happens is when we tap into it, we allow us to be whatever that is, because emotions aren't bad. If they were bad, we wouldn't have been given them, right? It's our interpretation of them, what we do with them, that creates the quote unquote bad. But letting that, feeling it, going into it, and seeing, like, my daughter see me emotional, it's like, I'm setting her up for an understanding of this is what you should expect in the man that you
100%.
go with down the road.
100%.
Like, they should support you, and you're not the emotional support in the house. And this is the flow. This is the masculine and feminine working together in fluency. And sometimes I need to pick her up. Sometimes she needs to pick me up. And
Yeah.
it's a balance, man. And that's what I love about it. Once we are aligned, we're able to balance and then we move forward. And that's what I love. What we do is helping people realign to who they are. And it's beautiful. I love it.
So it's
Awesome. Josh, man, if someone
thanks, mate.
wants to reach out to you, where can they find you, my friend?
Yeah, probably Instagram is the best.
Okay.
Atomic Athletes Official is the handle, or even Josh at atomicathletes.org. Someone can look. I I'm as available as I need to be because God is going to present me with opportunities for people, and I'm just really transparent like that. So yeah, you can reach out to me at any of those two places.
Awesome. And we'll have all of the links in the description so it'll make it easier. Um, man, this has been phenomenal. And I want to tell the listeners, like, if you reach out to him, he will respond. I was very surprised when he responded to my request, and I was like, he's a genuinely amazing human being. And I again, man, I'm very grateful to have met you. Very grateful to share your story. It's amazing.
No, thanks, mate. I appreciate you reaching out, and yeah, of course, good luck with everything that you're doing, and we'll stay in contact for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Guys, so hopefully you have gained as much insight, wisdom, and have felt the human connection and compassion that I have. And if you're looking to realign with your journey, I offer a journey of transformation. It's 6 weeks to help you, empower you to tap into your true essence of who you are, just like we've been talking about today, and realign you to your path, your purpose, and where you want to go. Reach out to me. But in the meantime, I'll see you next time. Be well, be loved. Thank you for joining me on PEP Talks with Eric, where together we shift our focus, embrace connection, and drive towards a more fulfilling life. Remember, it's not just about where you're headed, but how you choose to travel along the way. As you continue your journey, know that you have the power to change lanes and focus on the path that leads to positivity, purpose, and connection. Let's stay connected and continue empowering your journey one commute at a time. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. And until then, be well, be loved.